Hello, I'm Jonasz Rewiński and you're watching Break the Fake. They make them, we break them, and tell you everything you need to know. The Kremlin is once again buzzing with talk of major negotiations. Russian leader Vladimir Putin welcomed Steve Witkoff, US President Donald Trump's special envoy, to his office on Wednesday. According to Russian media reports, the Kremlin responded positively to this meeting. Yuri Ushakov, assistant to the Russian leader, told reporters that Putin and Witkoff discussed the war in Ukraine as well as prospects for the possible development of strategic cooperation between the US and Russia. According to him, Moscow sent signals to the American side regarding the Ukrainian issue. He stressed that similar signals were received from Trump.
Стив Уитков сегодня был утром принят нашим президентом. Что мог бы сказать? Состоялся весьма полезный и конструктивный разговор. Если назвать темы, то прежде всего, конечно, это украинский кризис. И вторая тема – это перспектива возможного развития стратегического сотрудничества между США и Россией. С нашей стороны, в частности, по украинскому вопросу были переданы некоторые сигналы. Соответствующие сигналы получены и от президента Трампа. Сейчас ситуация такая, что наш президент владеет полнотой информации, то есть наши сигналы от президента Трампа, а Трампу еще о результатах этой встречи не доложено. Поэтому я бы воздержался от более подробных комментариев. Посмотрим, когда Уитков сможет доложить о состоявшемся сегодня разговоре Трампу. И после этого, очевидно, мы сможем и мои комментарии сейчас чем-то еще дополнить, более существенным.
Do you also get the feeling that the guy just spent 1 minute basically wasting everyone's time? There were signals were received, and ultimately no further comments. Very impactful. We need to add, of course, that later on Mr. Ushakov confirmed there would indeed be a meeting between Trump and Putin. Where exactly or when, we still don't know. It is what they call a developing story. However, there is one other thing. Hearing Mr. Ushakov circling around the truth with words like Ukrainian issue, Ukrainian crisis, is like the real-life version of the Say the Line Bart meme. You know the one. Say the line, Yuri. Russian invasion of Ukraine. Applause. Still, it makes me wonder what the spirit of mutual understanding is supposed to mean here. After 3 years of war, thousands of Ukrainians killed, and attempts by the Kremlin to convince the world that black is somehow white. Remember how Trump lost his patience with Putin after the Russian leader kept trying to sweet-talk the world while cranking up the bombing campaign to 11? He gave Putin an ultimatum of 50 days, then shortened that to 10. Effectively, the 8th of August is the date when the fighting should stop. What the Russians want to achieve through this meeting with Witkoff mere days before the deadline is, well, anybody's guess. This is especially interesting given how Trump already announced he's going all in on the punitive tariffs on India for buying Russian oil. First 25%, then boom, 50%. It's intended to let Moscow feel the heat, give a sense of momentum, essentially. But given how Moscow always tries to wriggle its way out without actually, backing down, one suspects it's probably more diplomatic trickery, right? This is what Moscow is going to do. Given how Trump's team said a meeting between him and Putin could be imminent, one hopes the US president will be immune to the Russian dictator's deceptive charm. Reports are now coming in of Russia thinking of an air truce to placate the US president while not actually ending the war. In theory, that would mean an end to the deadly airstrikes. But you can imagine Moscow already thinking of all the loopholes they could exploit there. Would that mean no drone strikes? Or does a fiber optic drone not count because it is still attached to the ground when flying? You know, that sort of thing. Plus, the grinding campaign in the Donbass would still carry on. Hardly the end to the killing we were all promised. Other than being able to report at this time tomorrow that the war is suddenly ended, nothing to see here, move along, I suppose I would rather see Trump keeping the pressure on. Putin is the quintessential bad faith actor, the kind of guy trying to sell you prime real estate with quicksand, sinkholes, and undisclosed third-party rights. Want my personal advice? Don't let Vlad score a cheap propaganda win and enjoy the smell of secondary sanctions in the morning instead. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has once again made his presence felt. This time, he decided to explain why the war in Ukraine continues. No, it's not because of Russia. And it's not because Putin decided that in the 21st century it's still possible to redraw borders with tanks and missiles. The blame lies with European leaders who, and I quote, did not want to dance to the same tune. And with Donald Trump, who proved not strong enough to force them to do so.
Én azt gondoltam, hogy az amerikai elnök elég erős lesz ahhoz, hogy belekaroljon, ha tetszik ezt nekik, hanem az európai vezetőkbe. És akkor ugyanazt a polkárt kell járni mindenkinek. De nem volt hozzá elég erős. Tehát a problémát nem az oroszoknál, meg az ukránoknál látom, mert ott az eddig is így volt, hanem hogy az amerikai elnök nem elég erős ahhoz, hogy a maga oldalán állítsa az európai vezetőket. És ezért bekövetkezett egy, mondjuk úgy, hogy transatlanti hasadás. Az amerikaiak a béke, vagy ha nincs béke, akkor itt hagyunk benneteket álláspontjára helyezkedtek. Az európai vezetők meg arra, hogy meg akarják nyerni a háborút Oroszország ellen, Ukrajna területén. Nekik ez a céljuk. És ezt ki is mondják nyíltan, amikor miniszterelnöki csúcs van. Le kell győzni az oroszokat Ukrajna területén. És ezt a szándékukat az amerikaiak nem tudta megváltoztatni egyelőre. Itt vagyunk.
According to Orban's logic, the European Union has turned into a war coalition that dared to help Ukraine defend itself. And instead of getting out of this, as the US suggests, Europe decided, horror of horrors, to help Ukrainians resist the aggressor. In Orban's ideal world, Trump would take all European leaders by the hand and say, guys, stop helping Ukraine, let's all sit down at the table and give Putin a little more territory. But this is not the first time Viktor Orbán has acted as a kind of political megaphone for Kremlin messages, albeit slightly wrapped in EU packaging. His statements have long been a cause for concern, even among his closest neighbors. The Hungarian Prime Minister continues to build his image as the voice of reason, opposing the coalition of war. But somehow, this voice always echoes the Kremlin's rhetoric. Orbán does not offer peace, you see. He offers surrender. He does not condemn war, he condemns resistance. And now, he even seems to suggest that Trump is weak, a bit like Joe Biden, maybe. I wonder if Washington is going to enjoy that one. The Kremlin, for its part, certainly will. And with this, we conclude this edition of Break the Fake. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.